Digimon Digital Card Battle is a game for the original PlayStation based off the first Digimon trading card game. This trading card game would be discontinued and revived later in 2020 as a completely different game with essentially none of the same mechanics carrying over. And this is important as it means Digital Card Battle will likely never see a remaster or sequel. And that's a shame because I find this to be one of the best digital card game experiences to date. In truth, sometimes I wish I never played it because some of these mechanics created an itch that no other game can seem to scratch. Well, at least until Crossblitz comes out. So, what is it about the game that makes it actually unique? Well, to start, when you begin the game, you're given a choice of a few starter decks, which is standard, but stay with me. Each of these decks comes with its own partner Digimon, and this partner Digimon gains experience for each battle that it participates in. And by participates, I just mean if it's included in the deck that you're playing with. As your partner Digimon gains experience and levels up, its stats increase. Like the stats on the card. It's like if your pet card in Magic the Gathering got +1/+0 permanently after you won your 5th game with it or something similar. As it levels up, your partner Digimon also gains access to more Digiparts, Digiparts just being equipment, and your partner can use up to 3 of these Digiparts. Each of these Digiparts alters another aspect of the card, such as further altering the stats of the card or even completely changing the card's effect. Now, with all the changes that you can make to a given card, you might be wondering, hey, wouldn't that make that card really strong? Yes. So starting out a new save file, we're given the choice of 3 decks. The red deck with Vmon, a fan favorite, as the partner Digimon, the green deck with Hawkmon as your partner, and the yellow deck which has Armadillomon as your partner. And if you're new to Digimon, yes, their names all end in Mon. All of them. Anyway, choosing between these decks is basically like choosing how hard you want the first half of the game to feel. The red or fire specialty deck is an aggro deck, which is by far the easiest to start with. So if you try this game yourself and you're not too familiar with card games, I'd say pick that one. I almost always use the yellow or rare specialty deck, so for the sake of content, I chose the green nature specialty deck this time around. The other 2 colors are blue, the ice specialty, and black, the darkness specialty, but for simplicity, I'm just going to stick with calling them their colors rather than their specialties. We start out in Beginner City, where a weird frog tells us how the politics work around here. Basically, every city has an arena and a cafe. You talk to everybody in the cafe, unlock the arena, and then go fight in the arena. To win the arena, you have to take on several challengers one after another, tournament style, and beat them all in a row to advance to the next city, usually. The frog also shows us how to play the game itself. This is actually a very good tutorial that I would suggest playing yourself if you're interested, but just so nobody's lost, here's the rundown of the game mechanics. Keeping in mind that a card game that's explained to you will always sound more complicated than it actually is in practice. At the start of each player's turn, they draw a full hand, so if you have no cards in your hand, you'll draw to your max hand size of 4, which is an interesting mechanic. Another interesting mechanic is that you can actually mulligan your hand after you draw, as many times as you want. The drawback being that these mulligan cards go straight into the discard pile, and there are very few ways to get them back. Even the effects that can get your cards back from the discard pile are effects like shuffle the top card of your discard pile into your deck, so you don't even get to choose the card. Graveyard strats are absolutely not a thing in this game. You actually can't deck yourself out in this game, but if you have no Digimon left in your deck or hand, you will still lose by default, which is kind of the same thing, but it's worth noting that you can draw your last card and still be in the game for a few turns. You should still keep your greed in check, but it does open up some interesting strategies. Once you decide to keep your hand, if you have no active Digimon, you have to choose one Digimon from your hand to become the active Digimon. Your best bet is to pick one with an R in the top left. This stands for rookie, and I'll be using the terminology interchangeably. The other options are C for champion and U for ultimate. These Digimon are stronger, but if you choose them to be your active without digivolving, they'll, as the game says, malfunction, which basically just means their stats will be cut in half for each level above rookie that they are. Champion stats are halved, and ultimate stats are quartered. After an active Digimon is selected, or immediately after your draw phase ends if there's already an active Digimon, you go into the Digivolve phase. During the Digivolve phase, you may choose one Digimon card from your hand to go into the Digivolve slot, otherwise known as the DP slot. This is sorta like the Guts phase of a Monster Rancher card battle game, except you're limited to 1 card per turn, not your entire hand. And each Digimon card gives a certain amount of Digivolve points, or DP. After offering up your sacrifice, if you have enough DP, you can discard every card in the DP slot to Digivolve 1 level, from R to C or C to U. The amount needed varies based on the card you want to Digivolve into, and the Digimon must also be the same color as your active one. This makes splashing other colors somewhat difficult. The new Digimon comes in with full HP too, so a clutch Digivolve can earn you a couple more turns of being in a fight. There are other ways to Digivolve too besides using DP, but that's something to worry about later. After the Digivolve phase, we move on to the battle phase, but this can only be conducted if each player has an active Digimon. If your opponent doesn't have one, your turn just ends and it passes. If there are 2 active Digimon, however, we get to the most mechanically interesting part of the game, in my opinion. Each Digimon has 3 attacks: circle, triangle, and one that I know is supposed to be pronounced cross, but I've always said X, and I don't plan to stop now. Each of these attacks have their own damage value, and the X attack often has a special ability that triggers when you use it, which I will refer to as the X effect from here on. Each player's attack is chosen at the same time, and it's kept secret until the moment the Digimon battle, so neither player knows which attack the other one has chosen. This complexity is further compounded with the next phase of the battle step, the support phase. The phase where each player may choose a card from their hand, use its support effect, and then discard it. There are 2 types of cards in this game, Digimon cards and option cards, and either can be used during this phase. Digimon often have support effects on their cards, but as I mentioned, using those cards for their support effects will cause them to be discarded at the end of the phase. Option cards can only be used in the support phase, and thus have way more powerful effects to offset this lack of versatility. You probably also noticed that both players' hands are visible at all times. This further adds to the mind games. Each player knows what the other is able to do at any time, just obviously not what they will choose to do. You can also choose to play the top card of your deck as a support card, which is obviously unknown to both you and your opponent, and it could be beneficial, it could be garbage, it's a complete gamble and makes for some nail-biting moments when you're forced to use it. Once you've mentally decided what to do, both players choose their support cards, and then the support effects kick in an order based on a stat known as support speed, but I never pay attention to support speed. Here's the rule of thumb for this phase. Option cards activate before Digimon cards, and if both cards are the same type, Digimon or option, then the first card selected is the last card activated. Just like the stack in Magic the Gathering or a chain in Yu-Gi-Oh! And that rule of thumb applies in 99% of situations. I think in this whole playthrough there was exactly 1 instance where it didn't work out that way due to support speed. But if you were curious, support speed is denoted by the various colored arrows in the top right of a card's information box, which is displayed when you highlight it. Once the support effects have activated, the Digimon battle each other, and surprisingly, every single one has a unique animation for each attack, which is a very nice touch. You can disable these animations if you want under the Polygon Battles tab in the options, but for this playthrough I just kept them on. The game's short enough as it is, we can spend a little time watching these animals beat on each other. The Digimon take turns attacking, and the one that attacks first is the one whose turn it is. So if you just drew cards and went through the Digivolve steps and all of that, your Digimon attacks first. If you didn't, you're attacking second. When a Digimon's HP reaches 0, it's knocked out, and the player that knocked it out has won that round. A player must win 3 rounds to win the card battle. Though as I mentioned before, if a player has no more Digimon left in their hand or deck, they'll lose the game as soon as their active Digimon is knocked out. This doesn't come up a lot, but if you wanted, you could make a defensive control deck that just trashes the opponent's deck and hand until they have no cards left, and then knocks out their Digimon by war of attrition. And that's everything! So this completes the tutorial, and from here on, all the gameplay in the background will be at 2x speed. So after we kick the frog to the moon, we talk to an old lady and she opens up the arena. When we go into the arena, all the A's are highlighted red, but no other letters get that treatment. Huh, what an odd design choice. Wonder what it means. Moving swiftly on, our first real challenger appears, Agumon. He's running a tricolor deck, which usually means an inconsistent deck that will have a hard time gaining momentum a la Digivolving. Remember that a Digimon has to be the same color as the active Digimon in order to Digivolve. To demonstrate how a game goes, I'll do a play-by-play for this battle, but I won't be doing that the whole video. So I jump right into the arena without even looking at my deck because I'm obviously a Digimon master and can work with any hand that I... Okay, yeah, I can make that work. See, each starter deck has 2 colors. In the case of the green deck, it appears my secondary color is yellow. Yellow Digimon, especially the rookies, have some of the most dog shit stats in the game, balanced by having, bar none, the strongest supporting effects of any Digimon color. These 2 arguably have the strongest supporting effects, period, and one of them is already in the deck. So anyway, in this battle I mulligan 3 fucking times, holy shit, until I find a starting hand that I like. The number of cards in a deck is exactly 30, no more, no less, so I just trashed 40% of my deck in the first turn. I choose Salamon as my active and check my opponent's cards, a defense disc circle and an attack disc triangle. Attack disc doubles his triangle attack's damage, while defense disc will set my circle's damage to 0 for the turn. My Salamon has a triangle counter as its X effect, so if I choose my X attack, I'll go second, and I will do 0 damage unless my opponent shows triangle, in which case their attack is skipped, and I do the amount of damage to them that they would have done to me. In the very first turn of the game, the complexity and mind games that I so enjoy are on full display. Should I choose X, expecting the opponent to use their attack disc, or should I choose triangle, expecting them to use the defense disc? Well, luckily for me, I have an out. See, I'm attacking first. This means if he chooses to use the attack disc, I still get my lick in before he can. Knowing this, I can just choose Jungle Mojimon as my support card, who gives an active Digimon plus 300 damage to each of their attacks if they are a rookie, which Salamon is. I choose the triangle attack in case my opponent uses the defense disc instead, and use Jungle Mojimon to boost my triangle attack's damage to 520, which is enough to one-shot my opponent's Goblimon. Oh, by the way, that name, Goblimon, isn't what's printed on the card. Digimon have an annoying habit of having their names retranslated or just straight up changed in some cases throughout the year, and Gobburimon and Goblimon refer to the same guy. This might get confusing as I know some of these Digimon by different names than what's shown on the screen, but I assure you that is the least confusing part of this game, so don't worry much. Next, my opponent sends out Tentomon, who has X effect Circle to 0, which as you may have guessed, reduces the damage that my circle attack does to 0 for the turn if they choose the X attack. I tend to err on the side of low but consistent damage in this game, well, until later on that is. So I often choose triangle attack over circle attack in these situations. A 33% chance of doing 0 damage in a turn just doesn't sit well with me, which is the same reason I rarely use counterattacks. So a few turns pass and I fail to knock out my opponent's Tentomon quick enough and they digivolve to Kuwagamon, a 900 HP beat stick with big hits and triangle counter. Here's where one of the best support effects in the game I mentioned previously rears its head. Psychemon has a support effect, own HP becomes same as opponents. This is an honestly ludicrous effect that I'm surprised doesn't come with a drawback. Because my initial HP was low enough to be taken out by either of Kuwagamon's attacks, I said screw it and went with the counter, which actually paid off. Nice. For some reason I decided to Digivolve here, but either way I have more HP than my opponent, which allows Gotsumon in my hand to activate its support effect, which doubles my damage if my HP is greater than my opponent's, allowing me to knock out Kuwagamon when it should have had me dead to rights the turn before. Man, yellow Digimon effects are great. Like this one, Light Toy Agumon's effect reduces my opponent's damage to 0 if I have 1 or no cards in my hand. This is honestly not hard to set up. If you choose an active Digimon and then send another one to the Digivolve zone, you're left with 2 cards, and if one of them is Light Toy Agumon, then you can just use this effect just like that. Having taken no damage from my opponent the turn before gives me a big buffer of HP to sit back on. My opponent chooses Agumon for his support, which boosts his own circle damage by 300. But since it was my turn, my opponent chose his support card first. So having seen this, I use my defense disc to reduce his circle damage to 0. It was all for naught though, because he actually chose triangle. Mind games, I'm telling you. After a few more back and forths, Snow Goblimon goes down, securing me my first win of the playthrough. Or second, but I don't count Betamon, whatever. After each battle, you get to crack a pack. Though each pack is only 3 cards, it does happen after every battle, so you do end up getting a pretty good collection of cards really quickly. The first pack you get is just a basic pack, so there shouldn't be anything too... Holy shit. We got both of the Digimon with the best support effects in the game in the same pack. Toy Agumon's effect, discard 1 card randomly, HP of both Digimon becomes 200, is an instant win. If you're attacking first on the turn you activate this effect, unless the opponent has some way to counter the card specifically, you just win. Simple as. It can also obliterate the opponent's momentum. If they have a huge defensive wall eating your attacks, suddenly they're brittle as glass. We also got Alramon, or Aruramon. What a fucking mouthful. They have the effect to give lifesteal to your active Digimon for the turn at the price of half its damage. And of course, another copy of Psychemon. It was at this very moment that I began hatching an evil scheme, but I needed just a few more pieces first. After Agumon comes Babamon, the old lady from the cafe, in our final battle of the arena. She also uses a tricolor deck, and the battle wasn't all that interesting, so let's just skip ahead to the part where I win. Upon winning, I get the passcode to the neighboring Flame City, a pack of option cards, and an ultimate level Digimon card. The ultimate Digimon you get will be of either color of your starting deck, so in this case, green or yellow. I got Mega Kabuterimon, who's just a vanilla beat stick that I won't use much past the first few cities. You only get the passcode and ultimate Digimon after beating the arena for the first time, but you can get the pack of option cards every time you beat the beginner city arena, and it's extremely easy, so it may be worth farming up if you have a theme deck in mind from the start, and you just want some cards that boost that particular playstyle. After my victory at the arena and the experience my partner Digimon gained from it, I went to equip some Digiparts to him, changing his formerly useless effect of draw 3 cards to the much more helpful boost triangle attack power by 200, which, given my habit of avoiding the circle attack, will prove to be very useful. I also check out what cards I have in the bank. This game actually gives you some bulk commons to draft into your deck if you're having trouble or don't like how the deck is playing at the beginner arena, which I think is nice. In my bank I find... Okay, you can't blame me for the monster I create later on, it's like the game is begging me to do it. For the content. Anyway, I swap out a few cards, and this is what my deck looks like now. 2 copies of Dromogimon, who boosts all of my attacks' power by 200, 2 copies of Vegemon, which changes my opponent's color to green, which can prevent Digivolution and really mess up their strategy, 2 copies of Jungle Mojimon, who boosts my rookie's damage, a copy of Mega Kabuterimon, who does nothing interesting but is just included for now because he's a green ultimate, a copy of Ice Devimon, who triples my attack power if the opponent's Digimon is red, which is something that will become relevant very quickly, 2 copies of Mud Frigimon, who does nothing of note, but I needed a champion for my yellow Digimon, 2 copies of both Tentomon and Salamon, who don't do anything important with their abilities, but have very solid stats and can each take a hit, 1 copy of Gatsumon, who doubles my Digimon's damage if their HP is higher than the opponent's, 2 Kunemon, who lower each Digimon's damage by 200, which is a good defensive card that can buy you that one more turn you need to Digivolve, 2 Light Toy Agumon, 1 Toy Agumon, and 3 Psychemon, you know what they all do already, and my partner Digimon Hawkmon. 2 small recovery discs, which give my active Digimon 300 HP, 2 Circle Defense discs, and 1 X Defense disc, and a copy of Speed Digivolve. Speed Digivolve is a special card that can be activated from your hand after your Digivolve phase, or I guess immediately before the Digivolve phase ends. Either way, it lets you Digivolve without using DP. This is good if you plan to get to the ultimate level fast. You can keep the DP you've saved up and not have to start from 0 when you Digivolve to Champion, or you can just straight up go from Champion to Ultimate with it. With that, we move on to the next city. And whew! This next city is really hard for the second area of the game. You get a whole 2 wins under your belt and they throw you to the wolves. See, this city is home to mono-colored red decks. Remember when I said the red starter deck was the aggro one? Red Digimon in this game are characterized by low HP and high attack stats, as well as the best general support effects in the game. These effects aren't as absolutely butt-fucking bananas as the yellow Digimon support, but tons of general damage boosting abilities, boost all damage by X amount, boost circle, triangle, cross damage by X amount, and attack first are just some of the effects you can expect to see here. It can be totally overwhelming for a new player to mop the floor with the trash that came before, only to get swept by an opponent whose Digimon hit like a sack of trucks. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First we go to the cafe and meet some nerd from the TV show, it doesn't matter. He tells us he has something for us if we beat this city's arena. We also talk to somebody else named... nothing, I guess. We ask her who she is, and she completely dodges the question to give us a vague statement of things are happening before opening the arena. Okay. Our first opponent in the arena is literally just a man on fire. He uses an anti-blue deck, meaning most of his cards have the effect that they do something really strong if the opponent is a blue Digimon, but it whiffs in every other case. In our first round, he shows off the kind of aggro I was talking about, a support card that changes his color to red if it wasn't already, and then gives him plus 200 damage across the board for the turn. Goblimon is a difficult Digimon to face in general because all three of his attacks have the same value, so it's pretty difficult to predict which attack he will use. And then when he gets pumped so that all of his hits do 500 damage, that can be a bit of a problem. He then digivolves to Meramon on his... He then digivolves to Meramon on his turn, who hits reasonably hard, but I'd also like to point out his X effect, which triples his X attack damage if the opponent is a blue Digimon, bringing it up to 660 in this case. If you chose the yellow deck at the start, your secondary color is blue, so you may have a tough time with this one. Also, this turn he uses Candlemon's support effect, which pumps his X attack by 200. This would resolve before the 3 times bonus, making him do 1260 against a blue Digimon when all is said and done. Luckily I'm not blue, so I tank his hit and use Toyagamon's effect to beat his ass the following turn. Again, yellow rookie support effects are just too good. The rest of the battle goes more or less the same, prize pack was garbage, and we come to the next challenger, Phoenixmon, who has a deck centered around reviving his own Digimon. Reviving Digimon can be done with a few effects in this game. The Digimon that gets revived in the same turn they were knocked out, with the amount of HP equal to what's described in the effect of the card that revived them. If the Digimon was not knocked out this turn, then the effect whiffs. This is a very niche strategy, because you still lose the round, but you don't lose any of your momentum. Namely, if you have a champion Digimon and you're trying to climb to ultimate, you can keep your champion even if it's knocked out, so that you can hopefully get to that ultimate level that you're looking for. It's not a bad strategy, but it's kind of wasted on a red deck. There's another color that utilizes it much better. Surprisingly, no revives this battle, but I did digivolve to Mega Kabuterimon for the first time in this battle. And with speed digivolve no less. The following turn my opponent uses Pitomon's support effect, which is a very scary support effect in any other color besides the one he's currently using. His effect sets your active Digimon's circle attack damage equal to its HP, meaning the higher your HP, the harder your haymaker. This combined with a few other support effects can open a door for a fun strategy where you raise your HP as high as possible and then use Pitomon's support effect to one-shot anything that doesn't have circle counter or circle to 0. Best results will probably be with a majority blue Digimon deck, as blue is the opposite of red in this game's color pie. It has high HP, but low damage. Phoenixmon's prize pack was even worse than Meramon's, and we face our last opponent in the arena, Vmon. Yes, just like the partner from the starting deck. I don't really know how to describe his deck other than Unga Bunga! Dinosaurs! Only thing of note this battle is I digivolved to Mega Kabuterimon for the first time legitimately, and I drew Ice Devimon, who I forgot I included in the deck for a bit there. He'll triple my damage against a red Digimon, which is all this arena has, so that went about how you expected. When we beat Vmon, we get the passcode for the next city, a red pack for our prize pack, which wasn't bad, but I don't plan to use red this whole playthrough, so I couldn't care less. And, if you could believe it, another Mega Kabuterimon. So we go back to Davis in the cafe to force him to make good on his promise, and he gives us the ability to break the game in half. Oops, did I reveal that too soon? Yeah, Davis gives us a Digi-Egg, which allows our partner to armor Digivolve, a mechanic that is extremely strong and viable as a crutch or failsafe in basically every single deck in the game. In fact, the most degenerate strategies just use your armor Digivolving partner and a bunch of option cards. I don't recommend playing that way, but you could. Armor Digivolving happens the moment your partner is played, and it gives a moderate boost to stats. You can choose not to do it, but that kind of actually just makes it stronger. You get your choice of stat lines and X effects for any given situation. I go to see what kind of incredibly broken form my partner will take on, and it's not that good, actually. I mean, I guess it's not terrible, But I'm used to playing with the Armadillomon deck, and his armor form is Digimon, who comes out of the gate with 800 HP and 400 damage in each attack. He's like 1.5 Goblimon. This is a significant step down in that regard. Whatever, slight stat boost is better than no stat boost. Welcome to the team Horusmon, or Hulsmon, or I guess Halcymon. So after this I stop by the fusion shop and immediately walk right the fuck back out. We can do some fun stuff with this later, but fusion's really complicated and we don't even have all the functionality unlocked, so why bother? Onward we march to Jungle City, where we meet Keely in the cafe, who tells us that the old arena master of this area used to be a nice Digimon, but now he's mean, and he stopped giving out the passcode to the next city, which is the real crime. So we head off to kick his kneecaps backwards and set him straight. I edit my deck a little bit before going in and take out some of the anti-blue cards. I swapped in a couple of Digivolve, which digivolves my active Digimon down a level, say from champion to rookie, but doubles that rookie's HP. I'm also running a copy of Akatorimon, which boosts my active Digimon's power by 200 across all attacks, and a copy of Muchomon, which boosts just my triangle attack by 300. You'll notice I tend to use Digimon of all colors in my decks, but some are only there for their sport effects and aren't intended to be the active Digimon. With the minor deck tweaks, I head to the arena. This city's arena is a big step down in difficulty. I understand they didn't want to do this for story reasons, but this really should have been the second city. Everyone in this city is a complete pushover, though perhaps it's not their fault. In this game, green Digimon don't have amazing stats, and a lot of them have either no support effects or just flat out bad ones. What green does do well is Digivolve fast. Every green rookie gives at least 20 DP, and most give 30. It's pretty common to get a turn 1 champion in green. But like I said, their stats are average, so most of the champions aren't really that scary. Some certainly are, but most of the time it's not a problem unless they make it to ultimate. Vegimon's up first and does exactly what I said. Digivolve on turn 1. After I knock out his first Digimon, he does the same thing the second time. And then a third time. Didn't help him though. Next we have Ninjamon. He tries the same shit and it works out just as well for him. Funny thing about the Ninjamon battle, Halcymon actually held on by the skin of his teeth by circle to zeroing the opponent 3 times in a row. Damn, maybe he doesn't suck. On to Vidramon. He starts talking a lot of trash and after the fight we apparently knock him the fuck out and move on to our last opponent, the new arena master, Wormmon. We confront him about how Vidramon's been acting weird, to which Wormmon replies, "Nuh-uh," and then challenges us to a card game. It's worth noting that in arenas that have more than 3 opponents, after the third one, there's an option to save, so that if you lose you can just reset and try again from the 4th battle onwards, which I think is nice. Wormmon is the first opponent to use more than one color since Beginner City, and the first one in general to use black. Black Digimon have weak rookie forms, average strength champion forms, and supremely powerful ultimate forms, and therefore can be a pretty big threat when combined with the high DP yield of green Digimon. They also have good effects that come with drawbacks. This game actually has a bit of a problem with making black effects just a red effect, but with said drawback. Like Stingmon, who requires you to trash the top card in your DP slot to get plus 200 damage across all attacks. Akatorimon and Biomon already do that, and without a condition. Anyway, Wormmon displays what I mean by weak rookies right off the bat by putting out a Demi-Devimon, a rookie that doesn't even break 500 HP, putting it right in one-shot range of most other rookies provided they get just a little bump, like Jungle Mojimon pumping for 300 for instance. See ya. He then replaces it with another Demi-Devimon. The only thing scary about Demi-Devimon is his X, which triples damage against hey, is that a typo? Or is it a pun? Anyway, Demi-Devimon goes down and oh my god! We beat the 3rd fucking tiny vampire and the prize pack I get is
exactly what I needed.
We cut back to the characters having a dialogue and this sore loser refuses to give up the passcode, mumbling about a Ken being mad at him. We head back to the cafe to talk to the dinosaur that we concussed. He tells us he got possessed by the devil when he looked into the eyes of a child, and then gives us the passcode to Igloo City to make up for being such a jerk. Just a quick side note, by the way, Igloo City is my least favorite city in the game. Like, the whole game. I briefly went over this before, but red and blue are opposites in this game, where red is low HP, high damage aggro, Blue is high HP, low damage defense. This isn't so much of a problem for the first 2 battles in the arena, but the third one is my own personal hell. But we'll get there when we get there. First, business as usual, we head to the cafe. There we see a shivering child with a bowl cut, a dog, and that mysterious flower person again. The child, Cody, tells us somebody is calling themselves the Digimon Emperor, and then he also tells us he has something for us if we win the arena. The flower lady tells us that getting stronger cards lets us build stronger decks, and the dog growls at us. Time to fight. I make a very minor change to my deck where I throw in a few Elecmon who have a ×3 versus blue X effect. Every little bit helps. The first opponent of the arena is Frigimon, with just the most wet noodle deck you've ever seen. His gimmick is getting HP, and that's it. He's got a bunch of HP recovery discs, food, and support effects to give his Digimon HP. But he doesn't do anything with it, he just kinda stalls. Next is Whammon. Should just call them Whale. Why do they call him Whale? Anyway. Next, Whalemon. I can't really tell what his theme is supposed to be. I guess he's just kind of a blue deck. Nothing much to say here. Now, this fucking dog. Garurumon uses a deck focused on countering your attacks. Not just with his Digimon's X effect, but with option cards as well. He uses all 3 hitter cards, which, if they guess your attack correctly, let him attack first and pumps his Digimon by 500 across the board. It's basically an insta-kill if he catches you with them. But knowing is half the battle, right? So let's do this. Fuck. When I say yellow Digimon have some of the strongest support effects, I do mean it, but Garurumon, the card, is definitely top 5. Just a 3-word effect. Opponent uses circle. This will fuck your day up. It basically guarantees that you skip your attack this turn, because he will obviously only play it when he chooses an X attack with circle counter or circle to 0, which is on basically every Digimon in this deck. And that's exactly what he does here. Not the most optimal play, but still annoying as shit. Next turn, I'm still in it. I figure I might as well try to counter his attack. There's basically a 50-50 chance he used triangle. He's gambling with the top card of his deck, as long as it isn't... God fucking damn it! I'm sure you can guess that was one of the infamous hitter cards. He top decked it and rolled my shit. Unlucky. It feels so bad when the AI top decks, because the code for the AI is obviously on the same disc as the rest of the game, so it always just feels like they know exactly which card they're about to draw and just cheat. But, okay, I've got him now. He may have circle counter, but my triangle attack does more damage anyway. No way he can... Are you fucking serious? That probably peaked the mic. Whoops. Now I'm convinced this bitch-ass dog is a cheater. Alright, well, at least I can knock him out with my next attack. And there goes my window. A few more turns pass, I saw him draw another Garurumon, and I knew it was over. Well, that was embarrassing. Time to run it back. Oh, and I reset because I'm a bitch and I don't like having losses on my record. I'd have to do the whole arena over anyway, so it doesn't really make a difference. This time I decide, fuck it, why not, and use Halcyon. Starting off almost strong, just shy of a one-shot, and his next hand is... awful for me. He has cross hitter and triangle hitter in hand and circle counter on his Digimon, so no play is 100% safe. And if we know anything, it's that this dog will cheat, and he will read my input. I rolled the dice, and he in fact did not read my input, and I chose the only option that wouldn't get me immediately steamrolled. Next up, I use Akatoribon to give me a boost, since with triangle hitters and circles to 0, X is my only safe play for now. He burns both of his triangle hitters, and I come away with the kill. So far, not so bad. He goes for what is objectively the wrong play here and digivolves into Garurumon. Hyugamon has circle counter too, so it would have been much smarter to digivolve into him and then use Garurumon's support effect to guarantee a counter. But hey, I won't complain. I decided to play it safe and use my X move again. Since it has circle to 0, there's a 66% chance he does no damage this turn, as long as that gamble card isn't exactly what it ends up being. On his next turn, he draws... Yeah, alright, well, it was nice knowing you, Halcyon, thanks for playing. And then he digivolves to Garurumon with 1800 HP. Son of a bitch! I was so close! Well, I might as well try this. My gambles never pay off like his do. Luckily, he chose circle for some reason when my Tentomon has circle to 0. Since Garurumon has triangle counter, for some reason, I can at least hit him really, really hard before I lose another Digimon. Did he just tell me to shove it up my ass? Well, I suppose with that draw, I should tell him the same thing. All that's left is one final decision. He has a circle hitter in hand and a triangle counter on his X effect. I have to roll the dice. Is he going to go for the one-shot, or is he going to go for the triangle counter? I'm sweating. No counter. Yeah, it was a close one, but in the end, yellow Digimon effects are simply too good. But that wasn't the final battle of the arena. We still have one more. No problem though, at least I can save this time. Stingmon is the Digivolve form of Wormmon, so at least I'm not the only dude trying to get a salty run back in this fucking igloo. This time around he ditches the splash of green and goes all in on a mono-black strategy, starting off with two powerhouse effects. Megadramon halves both players' HP, and Phantomon mills 7 cards from the top of your deck in exchange for giving your attack lifesteal. Both of these are dangerous effects in general, but Megadramon is similar to Toyagumon in that if you're going first when you play him, you can almost guarantee you're winning the round. Almost. I actually end up 3-0ing him again, so for keeping track, Bugboy has beaten one of my Digimon exactly 0 times. After we send him crying home to Ken again, we go back to the Battle Cafe and talk to Garurumon, hoping he'll give us the passcode. Nope. Of course it's not that simple. He wants a rematch now that he's not possessed by the Digimon Emperor and he's back in his right state of mind, or so he explains. So, best 2 of 3, I guess. Before that, we talk to Cody. Cody gives us a choice of another partner Digimon. You can choose between Gatomon, a green Digimon, or Patamon, a green Digimon. It's worth noting that these are the same choices you get regardless of your chosen starter, so you're doomed to not have any deck variety if you chose Hawkmon's deck. Whatever, I chose Patamon because he's shaped like a sausage and I love him. Round 3 with Garurumon.
God, I hate this freaking
Garurumon!
I'm sure I don't need to give another play-by-play, just know I beat his ass and I got the code for the next city. Now, with 2 partners, I figure it's time for a new deck. It's finally time to put my evil scheme into motion. When I secured the early All-Ramon and several copies of Yellow Rookies, I knew what the content gods wanted from me. I was to make the dumbest, most gimmicky deck that I could using non-post-game cards. And so I did. Some Digimon in this game have an X effect simply called Crash. Crash will do damage to the opponent equal to your Digimon's current HP, then drops that HP down to 0. It's a self-destruct button. I get the impression this was supposed to be a no better choice, last resort type of thing, but as it turns out, there's quite a few ways to break it. All-Ramon, one of the first cards I picked up from some random prize pack, by the way, has a support effect which halves the damage your active Digimon's attacks do in exchange for giving them lifesteal. Crash, however, isn't affected by this, as the damage Crash does is always exactly equal to the amount of HP of the Digimon using it, never more, never less. This means it completely skirts the drawbacks of All-Ramon's effects and only gains the benefit, that being lifesteal, which therefore sets the Digimon's HP back to where it was. Technically, the Digimon actually makes a 10 HP profit. The downsides to Crash decks are that your Digimon is left with 10 HP, so a strong gust of wind will knock them out the following turn. Unless you use yellow Digimon support effects. Remember the 2 strongest rookie support effects in the game, Psychemon and Toyagumon? Both of these will set your Digimon's HP to be exactly equal to the opponent's one way or another, meaning if you go first, you can crash and insta-kill anything. And if you go second, you can at least recover from a previous turn's crash, or, in Toyagumon's case, severely dent the opposition so that the next Digimon can get an easy one-shot. There are other effects you could throw in here, like Madoki Betamon, who sets the opponent's HP equal to yours, but drops your damage to 0, which again, Crash doesn't care about. I opted to go more of a hybrid route, instead of leaning fully into the gimmick, and this is what that deck looks like. There are other Crash decks that are more optimal, but we're just having fun here. I'm running 1 Birdramon for attack first, 2 Bomber Nanimons because they have Crash, Flare Lizamon to change my active Digimon's color to red so that they can Digivolve into Bomber Nanimon, 2 Solarmon who both have Crash, a Biomon for all attacks plus 200, Candlemon and Muchomon for X and triangle attack pumps respectively. Andromon and Gardramon both have the ability to cut my Digimon's current HP in half to pump all attacks. which, if my current Digimon has 10 HP, it doesn't really care about that drawback anyway. Running a Saber Dramon who has both players use X attack in the event I'm against a Digimon with a circle or triangle counter and I'm going second, they'll do 0 damage, then I crash. I'm also running a Shamamon who halves the opponent's HP but doubles their attack, which is a risky move if you're going second, but an easy win if you're attacking first. 2 copies of Hagurumon, which also has Crash, and a copy of Level Balancer, which pumps rookies only by 400 damage. You should be familiar with all the other cards' effects here, besides maybe Patamon's, but he's not really part of the strategy, he's just here for the ride. For only being in the 5th area of the game, this is a pretty solid gimmick deck already. By the way, I just have to put this out there, if you're playing through the game for the first time, do not use a Crash deck, unless you want to make your first experience a boring one. This was actually my first time putting one together, and I had no idea just how much it would trivialize the game. We make our way to a literal pile of garbage where we meet this literal pile of shit that burps at us to deal with the bad Digimon who took over the area. The culprit should be no surprise by now, so let's get this over with. But before that, the RPG elements take precedent. I edit my Hawkmon's digiparts so that Halcymon is more and more like a makeshift Digimon by bringing his triangle and X damage up as high as possible for the time being. This ends up making his triangle attack stronger than his circle, which is a trait I always like in a Digimon. His X isn't too shabby either, dealing 310 damage with a circle to 0 effect. Most rookies can't do 310 damage with their strongest attack, let alone their weakest, so Halcymon is in a pretty good place. I do the opposite with Patamon, leaning into having circle be an absolute haymaker. 410 damage without an armor is higher than any normal rookie in the game. Agumon's circle usually holds that record at 380. Satisfied with my partner Digimon, I went to the Junk City Arena to try out my new Crash deck. I mentioned briefly before that yellow Digimon have very weak stats but strong effects, but that isn't entirely truthful. Yellow Digimon are described in-game as having weird effects, and that's more accurate as a whole. It just so happens that some of these weird effects are showstoppers. The first challenger, in a deal of irony, is a Hagurumon. A drawback to the Crash effect is that when you're attacking second, you don't really know how much damage you're going to deal. Here I took 200, so I only had 300 HP left to crash with. This isn't a problem though, because I attack first the next turn, and I just knock out the opposing Hagurumon. Crash is also a highly aggro strategy. As the opposing Toyagumon takes me out on the next turn, I just replace my Hagurumon with a Hagurumon. I use that cheeky combo mentioned earlier and use All Ramon to give my crashing Hagurumon lifesteal. Toyagumon survives, but not for long. Now we see the benefits of a hybrid strategy. On the following turn, I'm able to use Level Balancer to one-shot the next Digimon for the win. The next opponent is Shell Numemon. He never really puts up much of a fight regardless of what deck you're using, so on to King Sukamon. Nothing of note really happens in this fight either. King Sukamon uses a discard-heavy deck, where you'll be throwing out a ton of cards from your hand and deck. It's not really a threat, but hey, at least I get to show off how to use Shyamalan effectively, using him on a full HP Violecmon to drop him down within one-shot range. King Sukamon does bring out Nanimon, who has an X counter, which would be really bad news for my Crash deck. You know, since Crash does exactly as much damage as my HP in total, but again, this is why we have the hybrid deck. I use a Digimon with absolutely nothing to do with Crash tactics to secure this win. King Sukamon says he lost on purpose, and I'm almost tempted to believe him, but we now get to see which version of Wormmon we get to stomp next, and it's Shadramon. He drops the bomb that the Digimon Emperor and Ken are one and the same, but then he says he's not doing this for Ken anymore, and instead he's doing it for himself, which, good for him. Be your own bug. Stand up for yourself, man. And hey, this time I'm using a deck that literally sets my Digimon's HP to 0, so you're bound to win at least one round, right? So the battle starts, and hey, did I mention this was my first time using a Crash deck? Because I learned a vital lesson here. Turns out you can only lifesteal damage up until the enemy would be knocked out, and then you get none of the overkill damage. So when I crashed with 650 HP against a Digimon with only 330 HP, I ended up with 340. What hurts the most is I didn't even have to do that to him. I could have just used Circle. Well, whatever, still got him. One Psychemon Crash combo later, and I 3-0'd him again. Damn, no wonder he was seething, red-faced with tears in his eyes, talking about, "I'm not doing this for Ken anymore, I'm doing it for me," at the beginning. Maybe next time, buddy. He runs off crying about finishing me off in the dark arena, and I go talk to the king again. He says, hey, good job. Yeah, he doesn't give us the passcode. He says that if we want it, we need to win in the arena. You know, like we just did. But he says that time didn't count. Because he says so. This guy sucks. So we run it back and head to the next city, which is actually in another area altogether. Up until now, we've been in the Mega area, and here we transition to the Giga area. I think the change in scenery is supposed to represent a difficulty increase, but if that's the case, Dark City should have really stayed in Mega. Regardless, this is the arena that Wormmon chose for his grave. See, this arena is just for beating Wormmon's various evolutions. So first up we have his base form, Wormmon. And Wormmon fans will be pleased to know that he finally got a dub! His first knockout against me. Now that's character growth. Still lost the battle though. Stingmon's next, followed by Shadramon again. Shadramon actually started to make me sweat a little bit, so I had to get sneaky. Besides the support effect, Allramon has Lifesteal as his regular X effect, so combined with the level balancer to pump her up by 400, she ends up lifestealing 590 HP from the opposing Digimon, creating a huge HP swing and lets me comfortably sit as I chip down the opposition for an easy 3-2. Or so I thought before this dude drew an ultimate and special Digivolve. Special Digivolve lets you Digivolve regardless of what color the Digimon is Digivolving into, and it even lets you do so as if you had an additional 20 DP. It's a pretty strong card because even if you're running a monocolored deck, you still get a free 20 DP. Luckily I had Psychemon to even out the HP, but once again this bitch said PSYCH as he top decks Phantomon, letting him lifesteal. Shit man, he must have gotten that top deck cheat code from Garurumon. Fortunately, so did I, as I drew Toy Agumon, which, as we all know, means GG. I actually get some good cards from him after the match, though. Pitomon and Tankmon. Pitomon is good for high HP gimmick decks, like I said before, and Tankmon has a support effect that sets your HP to 10, but pumps all attacks by 500, which is extremely useful in a deck where my Digimon are often at 10 HP anyway. The next challenger is a form of Wormmon we haven't seen before now, Quetzalmon, my personal favorite of all of his armored Digivolutions, and I mean as a whole, not just the ones seen in this game. If you're wondering about my favorite Hawkmon armored Digivolution, it's probably Moosemon. I just love that color palette. He's not in this game though, so probably best to just forget about him. Only thing of note in the battle against Quetzalmon is that he uses blue cards, and we know how much I love blue. But this is still Wormmon we're talking about, so he gets smacked up like usual and we move on to the final battle. Digimon Emperor / Ken belittles Wormmon and I'm like, dude, not cool. That's my thing. And then my character says, you stink at card games. I know this game is for kids, but honestly I feel like they could have been more biting with the insults used. They should have just called them hot garbage or something. You know, in a modern remake of this game, I'd want to see them call the antagonist dog water or something. I don't know, but like, stink at card games? Would you like some cheese with that one? Come on. Anyway, when it comes time to throw down, we thoroughly run him over and default dance over his body before he runs away crying. And this time I mean, for real, he's actually crying as he runs away. In-game. That's canon. We head to Pyramid City where we meet TK, who tells us about Wiseman Tower. Did I skip a paragraph? What the fuck? Shit! Go back! After all that, we speak to Wormmon in the cafe, and he gives us the keys to a pyramid and another Digi-Egg, which is awesome. Now Hawkmon has options. He can either Digivolve into Halcymon like before, or Shurimon. If it's all the same to you, I'm just gonna stick with Halcymon. Shurimon's stats aren't really any different, but that X effect is much worse. At least Halcymon can take a hit. Wow, 2 disappointing armors from Hawkmon. I guess I remember why I always chose the other 2 decks as a kid. I went back to the deck editor and threw Tankmon in, as well as 2 Kunemon to hopefully make crashing when I'm attacking second easier. Fuck! God damn it. Okay, now we head to Pyramid City, where we meet TK, and he tells us about the Wiseman Tower, a place that hosts the toughest battle arena in Digiland. We also meet Angemon, who says, can't wait to fight you in the arena, and then just dips. Okay. We also see, again, the mystery lady tells us about him, another secretive entity that may pop up anywhere. She also tells us there's a fusion shop here, and we can get strong cards by fusing together strong cards. Huh. Arena time! This is the point in the game where decks get stronger option cards, and from this point on, arenas will not have just one main color. Centauromon has a pretty standard mono red deck, Tyrannomon has a red and green deck, combining both high DP yield with strong red Digimon, and a few healing items to offset his bad defenses, and finally Angemon has an anti-dark deck. If you use a majority black Digimon deck, consider editing it a bit before going into the arena. After beating the arena, we go back to TK, who gives us Patamon's Digi-Egg. So now Patamon can armor Digivolve the Pegasusmon, who has attack first as an X effect. This will pair very nicely with Tankmon, who will lower his health to 10 but bump his attack by 500, allowing for a 720 damage attack that always hits first. I also edit my deck a little, taking out Bomber Nanimon in exchange for more Hagurumon and Alramon. At the next city, Kari is mute, and Gatomon explains that she's an empath before opening up the arena. Wizardmon's up first. He uses what I can best tell is a defensive control type deck with cards that boost his damage if he has more HP than you do, combined with cards that mill your deck. Next is Aero Vidramon, who, despite being the Digivolve form of Vidramon and using a mono green deck, seems to be a different Digimon entirely than the Arena Master from Jungle City. He uses a lot of cards that say, if your current level is blank, gain X amount of damage. Lastly, there's Gatomon, who also uses a mono green deck, so, this was just as easy as all the other mono greens. If it seems like I'm not paying much reverence to these past few arenas, it's because the game doesn't either. These are a bunch of nothing fights to make the road to Wiseman Tower seem long and arduous. I do get a Digitamamon as a reward from this arena, which, spoiler, will be very useful before going to the final arena of the game. Also, back at the cafe, Aero Vidramon unironically tells me after clearing the 8th city of the game that red decks have a lot of red cards in them. I grabbed the special fusion data from Gatomon, which doesn't really matter because special fusions are guaranteed to work with the same materials every single time, but it's still nice to see the cutscene you get for having it. To beef up my deck, I finally decide to utilize the fusion shop. Here you can fuse various Digimon and/or option cards to get new ones. There's a whole matrix for what you can get and how, but the gist of it is there are certain color combinations to make other colors. For example, a black and a green Digimon will make a blue Digimon. Any Digimon of any color with an option card makes another Digimon of the color used, and two Digimon that share a color create an option card. Additionally, each card in the game has two hidden values, a material value and a result value. To get the card that you want, you need to fuse the right combination of colors/option cards that each have a material value, which adds up to the result value that you want. I did say fusion was complicated. It's not that hard to wrap your head around the rules, but what can get confusing is if you don't have a certain card that you need, having to go and then make that one first. It can get several layers deep, and oftentimes you may just throw your hands up, say fuck it, and just come back later when you have more bulk commons. At this point, I can only fuse rookies, champions, and option cards, no ultimates. And some of the better champion cards like Garurumon have a result value so high that it's very hard to get two cards with high enough material cost to make them without using ultimates. I fuse the cards necessary to get a few premium stakes, various hitters, chainsaws, data copies, super recovery floppies, various Digivolution cards, miracle rubies, and hacking. One of the better option cards in the game, and a necessity if you want to beat the final boss without using a gimmick deck. I also grind up at the Dark City arena trying to get a Stingmon in the rewards. Stingmon is one of the only champions with a high enough material value to actually get Garurumon through fusion. I do eventually get one and fuse it with Angemon to make a couple Garurumon. I then tried to make a counterattack based deck like the one that so royally fucked me over earlier. Spoiler though, I didn't really like it, so I just went back to crashing everything for a little while longer. I just don't like playing with counters. Even if they're frustrating to play against, they're not very fun to play with. But I wrote this part in the script anyway because, just like the Giga area as a whole, it's mainly included for padding. We march onto the Terra area, and our first, city is the Steep Road, where a bunch of shady characters and ex-Digimon Emperors hang out. We speak to Ken in the cafe, who has dropped the Digimon Emperor moniker and offers us a choice of a third partner. Here, you can choose one of the starters that you didn't pick at the beginning, in my case Vmon and Armadillomon. the other of the 2 green starters you didn't take from Cody, Gatomon for me, or you can pick Wormmon himself. And I really weighed these choices. I heavily considered going all green, but ultimately I chose Wormmon, because how could you not? Look at him. We talk to Megadramon, who is very aggressive towards us and opens the arena. The first opponent is Goblymon. He's the first to use use a deck with all of the Digimon colors in it. His deck is actually pretty similar to the Crash deck in a lot of ways. Rookie-only Digimon with some significant firepower coming from the support effects. Like with Pyramid City, this city marks an uptick in the difficulty of the opposing decks, particularly in the option cards they use. Goblymon having Level Balancer is no joke, as an extra 400 damage on most attacks is enough to one-shot any rookie. It wasn't too difficult to hit him with the signature Psychemon Crash combo and take the win though. Next up is Demi-Devimon, who swears he'll just let us win. His deck is theoretically very scary. He doesn't use champions, instead opting to use the Warp Digivolve card, which allows him to Digivolve straight from Rookie to Ultimate if he has the appropriate amount of DP. The problem with this strategy in practice is that he would need the Warp Digivolve card and an Ultimate in hand at the same time to make this work, and in my opinion, his AI doesn't mulligan aggressively enough to make this happen consistently. The maximum number of copies of the same card that you can have is 4. I thought for the longest time it was 3, I'm not sure if there was a reason behind that assumption or not, but even assuming 4 copies is the max, there's still only a 13% chance that he would draw Warp Digivolve in his opening hand. Therefore, he would have to mulligan very aggressively since his whole strategy revolves around that specific card. So I stomp his 3 rookies and move on. Last challenger is Megadramon, and his deck is hyper aggressive and risky, loaded with cards that have Digimon HP. The best among them is Mega Hand, which sets the Digimon's damage equal to their HP and then halves it. It's like Crash, but instead of going to 10, they only get reduced to half. We beat him, but then when we ask for the passcode to the next city, he refuses, saying he can't do it because he isn't the arena master. That would be Gigadramon, and we have to meet Gigadramon at the cafe, get growled at, and then go through the whole arena again, this time beating Gigadramon at the end. So we do that and move on to the Wiseman Tower. Oh, holy shit, we're at Wiseman Tower already. Yeah, the end of the road sure didn't take that long, huh? We entered the cafe and talked to Metal Greymon, who claims to be the Digivolve form of the Agumon from Beginner City? What? I guess I spent a lot longer grinding than I thought, damn. He talks about a great evil lurking nearby, which, if I had to guess, I'd say is the giant foreboding tower in the center of the area. He says that we are the only hope to stop the evil things happening in there, but first we have to play a card game with him and his buddies, and then he opens up the arena. Before facing off against the arena, I make a new deck. The Crash deck is retired for now. This new deck is a mostly black Digimon deck, but since I didn't have enough black ultimates, I threw in a special Digivolve, which, in case you forgot, would let me Digivolve a champion into an ultimate regardless of the card's color, so I included Monzaemon. Monzaemon actually has a pretty good support effect, where the active Digimon gains HP and gets a slight boost to damage. All around a good card. I also have Andromon as a regular black Digimon. Now, remembering what I said about black Digimon in this game, their early forms are weak, but their later forms are strong, so you really want to Digivolve and you do not want to have rookies around for a while. As such, I included cards in the deck to help with survival. Cards like Seadramon, which halves the enemy's attack power, Betamon, which reduces the power to 0 if my active Digimon's HP is below 200, again, Monzaemon for a little bit of survivability, Kokuamon decreases the active Digimon's damage by 100 but gives them 200 HP. Super Recovery Floppy gives 700 HP if my Digimon's HP is lower than the opponent's. Miracle Ruby revives any knocked out Digimon with 1000 HP if they were knocked out the turn it was played, and Hacking. I mentioned earlier that hacking has a very strong effect, and that effect is to swap HP with the opposing Digimon if my Digimon has a lower level. So if mine is Rookie and the opponent is Ultimate, they'll swap HP. I also gave Wormmon a Digipart that changed his effect to halving my active Digimon's damage in order to give it 400 HP. With all this survivability combined with 4 Digivolve cards and 2 failsafes in the form of Revive cards, I should be able to get Andromon out reliably. The goal of this deck is to get to the ultimate level as soon as possible and sweep with pure brute force, but the deck isn't complete. It's rare to get an ultimate level Digimon that isn't in the 2 colors of your starting deck until exactly this point in the game, when you start to get super red packs, super blue packs, etc. So really, at this point, I'm banking on getting a super black pack and grabbing some decent ultimate Digimon from those. I enter the Wiseman Tower arena, said to be the hardest arena by the in-game NPCs, with my new deck in tow. The first opponent in the tower is Togemon. He's using a mono green deck, so you know how this goes. In the next fight against Kabuterimon, I realized a little too late what the A in anti-A deck stood for.
It stands for armor.
So we run it back, not armor digivolving this time, and make it through just fine. Anti-armor is a good strategy against the player, who has 3 partner Digimon who can all armor digivolve, but it's not so great against AI opponents. The opponents that you face in this game almost never have armor Digimon. Now, Armor Digivolution itself is a very strong mechanic, particularly for the player who can further strengthen their Digimon through grinding or digiparts. If I were to make like a hard mode mod of this game or something, I would throw a couple more anti-armor cards, like maybe Black Gatomon, into a bunch of decks just to keep the player on their toes. Kabuterimon's deck leans super hard into the theme and I can respect it, but it leads to easy counterplay by simply not using armor. A lot of these gimmick decks fall short. It would be one thing if these gimmick decks were at the beginning of the game, but these are the in-universe strongest card players in the world. How did this guy make it to Wiseman Tower with a deck that targets only like 6 cards out of the whole card pool? He did beat my ass once though, so what do I know? Ikakumon has an anti-fire deck, which doesn't apply at all to this darkness deck, so this doesn't take long. He has a few stall-y techniques and some hitter cards, but I made it through Igloo City without folding my screen in half, so this guy's no problem. Next we have Bergermon, who gets all philosophical on us, asking some why are we here ass questions. Bergermon's gimmick is supposed to be using a deck that lets him attack first, but there doesn't seem to be enough cards in the game to allow that alone to be a powerful strategy, or at least not a powerful strategy that the AI can use. He has some hitter cards, Biomon and Bergermon, and I think that's it. Just like with Kabuterimon, it's a shame the AI doesn't know the all-powerful strategy of splashing Digimon cards of other colors only for their effects. A couple Ninjamon with the unconditional attack first effect would have been very beneficial for this deck's theme. Or better yet, a deck that isn't red, so that Bergermon's unconditional attack first and Ninjamon's could both be used freely, because they wouldn't have to worry about digivolving into Bergermon, as the AI tends to like digivolving into itself. Regardless, attacking first isn't exactly a slam dunk of a strategy anyway, unless you have lethal and the opponent happens to be going first, or maybe if you're using a crash deck. In all other cases, you still get hit for the same amount of damage, so most of the time the order of your attack won't matter enough to devote half your deck space to changing it and doing nothing else. Even in my crash deck, I included a single Bergermon and nothing more. Given how I just spent the last half minute shitting on how attack first as a support effect isn't super helpful, it should be no surprise that Bergermon got and we moved on to opponent number 5. Opponent number 5 is Weregarurumon. He's the very same dog from Igloo City, except he went through a Pokemon-style evolution and now he walks upright. Given that this is the same dirty cheater as Igloo City, you would probably expect his deck to be very counter-heavy, and while you would be right, it's honestly much less bullshit. At least it feels less bullshit at this point in the game. He leaves the hitter cards at home and replaces them with mostly HP recovery cards, and he has a lot less attack to 0 support effects. I don't think I saw any Otamon or Gomamon in his whole deck, so it wasn't such a tightrope walk just to attack. He goes down 3-0 to Andromon, and that's that. Our final opponent is Metal Greymon, whom we met in the Battle Cafe already. He's still using his tricolor deck, just like in Beginner City. There's a considerable amount of upgrades, of course. He has Mutant Digivolve, a card which lets you digivolve your current Digimon with another one of the same level in your hand, regardless of color, so his red champion could slide into a blue champion instead. This is a good card for survivability. Though you do need the DP to use it, him having green in his deck provides plenty of that, so I'd actually say this is a really good inclusion in his deck. He also has special Digivolve, like I do, so that he can go right from that blue champion into a green ultimate. It's a pretty solid deck list, honestly, and worthy of an endgame battle. Just kind of a shame that the 5 fights before him were decks based on such niche strategies. Upon beating him, I got a super green, super blue, and super red pack. No super blacks, but oh well, can't complain too much because I got Real Metal Greymon, an exceptionally rare find with a great support effect. Pump 300 damage. That's it. No conditions, nothing else. Solid card. We talked to Metal Greymon in the cafe after, and he gives us a Digi-Egg for Wormmon, so now all 3 of our partners can armor Digivolve. He tells us that we need to go to the Infinity Tower and put a stop to the evil that's going on there. Which, by the way, he actually says they haven't done anything bad yet, but he knows that they will. So we're basically crashing their party and beating their asses because Metal Greymon thinks they have bad vibes. Also in the cafe, Garurumon gives us the card Hacking, which I already have, but if in your playthrough you didn't bother to go through fusing, this is a free hacking card, and you're going to want that going forward. The mysterious lady reveals herself as Rosemon, but not really. Okay, so if you're not really a Rosemon, then why be so secretive about your identity? Weirdo. I make a stop at the fusion shop and finally decide to interface with the mechanic. For something other than option cards, anyway. See, I have a plan. To unleash one of the most devastating ultimates in the game, with a DP cost of 70, which can be safely ignored by my 3 copies of Speed Digivolve. And, now that I'm told exactly what my fusion will create ahead of time, this process can go a lot more smoothly. I fuse an Edamon with a Mega Kabuterimon to get a Warumonzimon, who I fuse with Armor Crush Digivolve to get Infirmon. I fuse an Andromon with an Angiawomon to get Brachiomon, who I then fuse with Hercules Kabuterimon to get a Digitamamon. Finally, I special fuse Infirmon with Digitamamon to get Diablomon. Diablomon has an atrocious support effect, gives 0 DP while requiring 70 to Digivolve into, but in raw power, there's only one other Digimon in the entire game that even comes close. Getting this guy out is basically GG. I put him in my deck and set out to the final arena of the game, Infinity Tower. We talked to Venom Myotismon in the Tower Cafe. He spits some generic monologue about destroying the world because he feels like it, and now I get to go through one last arena. First up is Tuskmon with a mono black deck. As far as I can tell, his only real theme is just slugging it out. He's got plenty of effects that boost his damage, but also several copies of Colosseum, which changes both Digimon's attacks to Circle, as well as boosting his own Circle damage. This is probably a card I should have grinded for to fight Garurumon back in Igloo City, as it's a solid counter for any X attack spamming deck. Tuskmon goes down, and now we have Phantomon, another mono black user. He says his sickle is going to cut us up, which is actually pretty funny considering how hard he gets stomped in this battle. Only my second battle with him in the deck, and I got Diablomon out. Phantomon's deck uses a lot of cards that give him lifesteal, but Diablo's circle attack hits for almost 1,000 damage, so stealing HP didn't really do much for him. Mega Seadramon is next. He's using a mono blue deck, but that's all the information I have for you. I actually got Diablomon out so early this time that I have no idea what Mega Seadramon's deck was supposed to do. If I had to guess, since it's mono blue, he probably just planned to hide behind giant HP values. Machinedramon is up next with a black and yellow deck, and it was at this exact moment I realized that basically nobody uses yellow in this game. And suddenly it makes sense why they wanted you to replay Junk City's arena. Machinedramon's deck is all about HP manipulation. He has cards that cut HP values in half, as well as his own copy of Hacking, which again will swap the HP values of the Digimon in play if my level is higher than his. And knowing that that's the case, I probably don't want to bring Diablomon out in this battle. I instead resorted to Armor Digivolving. Armors are considered a higher level than rookies, but a lower level than champions, so it's a pretty good area to stay in. HP manipulation as a mechanic is really strong in this game, as a higher level Digimon will basically always have a big HP value. It's kind of unfortunate there aren't really any glass cannon archetypes in this game. I get that it would suck pretty hard to spend 40 DP to Digivolve into something that just gets one shot, but when every ultimate has over 1,000 HP and most non-blue champions have under 1,000 HP, it kind of makes cards like Hacking insanely strong in every situation in which it could be activated. I think it would be really cool to have a high-level Digimon with low HP but high attack in order to act as some sort of glass cannon wall buster, and make HP manipulation effects that target both players less effective on yourself, so there's an upside to using them, similar to a Stacks deck in Magic the Gathering. And it would also make the attack-first strategy that Birdramon employed a lot more threatening. Well, with Machinedramon out of the way, that just leaves Venom Myotismon, the last fight of the arena. Venom Myotismon's deck is really not remarkable. It's another mono black deck and nothing much else to say, really. As long as he doesn't get an ultimate form out, it's not that much of a threat. And he didn't. So he wasn't. He spouts some cope about how we're merely delaying the inevitable and then hands me my rewards. I got a super blue pack and a super yellow pack, neither of which gave me an ultimate, thanks, And then a Super Black Pack, which gave me a Megadramon, an acceptable pull with strong attacks and a pretty good support effect. Well, with that, we've won the arena. Venomiotismon tells us we're merely delaying the inevitable, and then tells us we're merely delaying the inevitable, before telling us we're merely— Hey, what the fuck? Is he broken? So a user by the name of Analog Man hacks into the digital world, and our character correctly surmises this must be him. He allows us to edit our deck to take him on, but disables the save function, so we only have one shot to take him out. We go back to the cafe, and Rosemon tells us they call him A. Oh, like the A in Arena! She explains that beating him in a children's card game will trap him in the digital matrix forever, somehow. Okay? We go back to the arena, and A has taken over Venomiotismon's body as his virtual avatar. A, being rooted into the system, is a legitimate cheater. He opens up his little terminal window and hacks our deck to put all of our partner cards at the bottom. He can also choose the order of the cards in his deck and doesn't have to shuffle them. His starting hand will always consist of Demi-Devimon, Apocalypse, Holy Sevens, and Download Digivolve. Download Digivolve is an overpowered card that lets a Digimon digivolve into another Digimon in the hand, regardless of the Digimon's DP requirements, level, or color. It basically lets you cheat in any Digimon you want. So during his first turn, he will always have Apocalypse, the only ultimate level Digimon that has greater stats than Diablomon. This deck also has all of the Sevens cards, a series of intentionally super broken option cards. A few of these cards' effects include Grand Sevens, which boosts your damage by the value of your HP, and Speed Sevens, which lets you attack first, boost your damage by 200, and gives you lifesteal. Both Download Digivolve and the Sevens series of cards are exclusive to the post-game because they are so strong. So with all these overpowered cards, how can we possibly defeat A? Well, you already know the answer to that, don't you? Psychemon, Crash, Toyagumon, Bash, Psychemon, Crash, and just like that, with the main story finish, we've completed 46% of the game. Huh. Yeah, I'm not doing the post-game in this video. One of my major gripes with this game is the lack of deck variety. There are only 300 cards total, and some of those spots belong exclusively to Armored Digimon, which aren't accessible by normal means, so there's actually fewer than 300. There's only so many ways to combine less than 300 cards in a deck of 30, and also now that the post-game is unlocked, there's nothing stopping you from hunting down and collecting the broken-ass 7 cards and just stomping everything from here. Which may sound like fun to some people, but for me it's more of an, okay, there's nothing else to do here. I'll leave the post-game experience to you. There's plenty more to do, like battling this fucking freak.